Alright everyone, this is Cobb and welcome to a Warlords of Draenor, Destruction Warlock, Stat Priority, Talents and Glyphs guide. I want to say straight away that this guide might become outdated once people are fully epic geared. So I'm also going to talk about some alternative talent choices that I think could become better depending on how PvP changes as the expansion goes on. So let's just get straight into it. So this right here is, in my opinion, the strongest general Destruction Warlock talent build right now, and this includes Battlegrounds and Duels and all of that. After covering this talent build, we're going to look at the Demonic Servitude spec that works pretty good in arenas as well. First off, we have Searing Flames. This is an immensely strong talent right now. The self-healing over time that you get from this is just huge, and because Destro actually struggles to build Embers right now, this talent also lets us get the most out of our very, very limited resources by essentially letting you get off twice as many Ember taps. However, Dark Regeneration is still an extremely strong talent, especially for surviving in arenas and through enemy burst cooldowns. If PvP gets bursty enough, as the damage increases with gear, we might see Dark Regeneration in arenas again, mainly for the 25% bonus to healing received, but for the time being at least, Searing Flames should almost always be taken. We've gone for Shadow Fury here on this next tier, and that is pretty much because for dueling and Battlegrounds and even some 3v3 comps, it is just the best talent overall due to its 30-second cooldown. If you're playing a 3v3 comp that doesn't have a lot of stuns like LSD or LSD2, Shadow Fury is usually the best pick. But if you are playing a comp with a lot of stuns like RLS or MLS, Mortal Coil is generally way better than Shadow Fury, just to avoid DR stacking. You can also combine up Mortal Coil with the Havoc Glyph, as this is going to allow you to land a double Mortal Coil into a double Chaos Bolt. When glyphing Havoc, you want to replace either Ember Tap or the Healthstone Glyph. I would personally get rid of the Ember Tap Glyph, but I think that this is mainly down to preference. Next up we have Sacrificial Pact, and this is pretty much only worth speccing if you spec into Grimoire of Sacrifice as well. If you use Sacrificial Pact at full health, which is around 300k right now, you can easily get yourself an Undispellable Absorb Shield for over 250k, and this is only on 1 minute cooldown and is usable while CC'd. Now Dark Bargain and Soul Link do also have their merits. I think if PvP becomes more bursties, people gear up. Again, we're going to end up speccing into Dark Bargain again, just to survive through enemy cooldowns, but for the time being, Sac Pact is just too tasty to pass up. Unbound Will is pretty much the only choice on the 60 tier. Blood Horror is now on a 1 minute cooldown for a 3-second horror effect, which is utterly retarded, and Burning Rush is still just completely awful, so grab Unbound Will here, as it at least has some uses. Grimoire of Sacrifice is the way to go right now for Destro. It synergizes really well with Sacrificial Pact and boosts up our burst damage. Grimoire of Service is only really decent in Battlegrounds, while Grimoire of Supremacy and Demonic Servitude could be awesome for Destro. I just feel like first and foremost we need to focus on improving our burst damage. Our sustained DPS can wait for now. Maybe in the future we're going to see pet specs being played for Destruction, and I really hope so, because I kind of miss playing with a pet, but for now at least, Sacrifice builds just offer us a lot more burst potential. Akamon's Darkness is now pretty much the undisputed best talent on the 90 tier. Ever since Killjaden's Cunning was shat on in the pre-patch. There's just no competition here anymore really. Manarot's Fury has never been worse for Destro PvP. The 100 tier is definitely the big one. What you pick on this tier pretty much dictates exactly how you're looking to play your spec. Because we're looking for burst damage right now, I feel like Cataclysm is the only real viable option. Landing a Cataclysm crit, off of a stun or something can really turn a fight on its head. Now if we get fully geared and our damage gets scary enough, we could definitely spec into either Chad Remains or more likely Demonic Servitude, but for the time being, I feel like we need all the damage we can get, so I'm going to be sticking with Cataclysm. But honestly, maybe even as soon as a month from now, we could end up playing with Demonic Servitude, and that actually gets me really excited. It has been way too long since Destro has been truly arena viable while playing with a pet. As for Glyphs, I'm using Conflagrate, Healthstone and Ember Tap. The only one I'd say is 100% mandatory for Destro is the Conflagrate Glyph, so nothing really changing from Mr. Pandario with that one. The other two, both Ember Tap and Healthstone, can be swapped out if you choose, but the only swap I would really make is swapping out Ember Tap for Havoc when I'm playing with Mortal Coil in arenas. Now another solid spec for Destro arenas is the Supremacy Servitude spec. You sacrifice some best potential for a more sustained DPS style of play. It works pretty sick. But it is weaker against Affliction comps and other dot cleaves that will just wreck your pet every single game. The spec is pretty much the same other than a few key changes. I decided to go with Soul Link at the defensive tier just because it's really strong right now. But honestly both Sacrificial Pact and Bargain could work as well. We go with the Supremacy Grimoire to increase the pet's health and damage. Then of course we go into Demonic Servitude itself. And we play with the Doomguard pet, who has Spell Lock and a 4-second root. Keeping the Doomguard alive is a huge deal when playing with this spec. He actually hits between 9 and 11k right now per Doombolt. We go with Searing Flames a little bit earlier on, especially with this spec, just because one of our perks actually causes our Ember Tap heals to heal our pet for 20% if the amount that it heals us. And just like the previous spec that we went over, you might also want to consider swapping into Mortal Coil instead of Shadow Fury if your 3v3 comp already has enough stuns. And I do quickly cover stat priorities right now for Destruction. Crit Strike rating and Mastery are pretty much tied at the top of the list. Crit not only helps our damage, but it also boosts our Ember generation, which is a huge issue for us right now. But on the other hand, Mastery directly buffs our damage and increases the effectiveness of our Ember consuming spells like Chaos Bolt and Ember Tap. I think as gear progresses, Mastery will eventually become more important than Crit, and that's just because I feel like Crit is only effective up until a point. Whereas Mastery just keeps on giving us bigger percentage increases on damage. Coming in third is Versatility. It's a really nice arena staff for us because it gives us extra damage mitigation as well as damage, and everyone likes to train a Destro lock. You could maybe prioritize Multi-Strike over Versatility if you really want to, but I'm not a big fan of Multi-Strike just because all of our base damage comes from 3 or 4 spells, and I can't really see there being a big difference in damage whether you have 10 or 20% Multi-Strike at that. And we've got Haste at the bottom here. You could stack a ton of Haste to try and get off more Cataclysms or something, but if those Cataclysms aren't doing much damage or aren't critting as often, then it's very debatable whether stacking Haste is worth it or not. I'd say that you could argue that Haste is maybe a little bit better than Multi-Strike, but that's about as high as you could get it on the priority list for Destro right now. And that's going to be about it for this mini guide style video. As I think you might have noticed, a lot of the talent choices are going to be influenced by how gear impacts PvP over time, but hopefully this video has helped some people who are just feeling a little bit lost playing Destro in this expansion. It's been a very strange, very clunky one so far, but hopefully things are going to pan out okay. So I want to thank you all for watching, guys. Huge thanks to everyone supporting me on Patreon. It really means a lot to me. A link to the Patreon page is down below in the video description, along with a link to the Cobrak t-shirt store. Go ahead and check those out if you haven't already. Have an awesome day, everybody. Stay Destro, and we can catch you all a little bit later.